Welcome back to the Wizards hangar. Anyways, we're going to check out this really cool 2015 Cirrus. Let's get started. So welcome back, guys. I'm here with my brother-in-law Jason. He just flew in from out of town with his family to visit, and he brought his really cool 2015 Cirrus. Tell us a little bit about, what is it, a SR? What did you say it was?
It's an SR22T. So Cirrus started making airplanes in the early 2000s, and they started with the SR20, and then there's an SR22, and then the SR22T means turbo, and so it's turbo cooled, and it has more performance, more power.
So this one's a turbocharged engine, huh?
Correct.
And I think it was kind of like a Porsche. It's a flat six-cylinder.
That's correct.
And opposed six-cylinder, yeah. So we're going to take a look around the plane. We'll look at the interior. We'll talk about some of the avionics, and we'll talk about the engine that's inside of here, and let you guys check this really cool plane out. So how many horsepower does this thing have, the engine?
315.
315. Yeah. Who actually makes the engine?
It's a Continental.
Oh, it's a Continental. Thank heavens it's not a BMW. I was actually starting to worry if you would make it home or not.
Right.
Wow. That's good that it's a Continental. So how long have you had it?
Let's see. My partners and I have two partners. We've had it for like 3 years.
3 years? Does it get a lot of flight time?
Like 10 hours a month or something.
10 hours a month? That's really good. Yeah. Let's take a look around and you can show us some features. So this is, what is this, an air inlet?
Yeah, that is, and there's vents, more air inlets there and there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That looks like air cooling for the engine. This might be like intake.
And as far as the prop goes, it's kind of cool, a 3-blade prop that is a variable pitch. So the airplane automatically controls the angle of the prop so you can get the right sort of bite of the air and the thrust that you want. And the other interesting thing about the prop on this plane that other Cirruses don't necessarily have is this, which is a weeping leading edge. So if you fly into icing, it weeps anti-icing fluid and can dissolve it, so you can fly into icing conditions.
That's cool. It's kind of like a de-icer.
Correct, yeah.
That's really cool. Is there any kind of de-icing in the wing itself?
Yeah, there's millions of tiny little holes all along everywhere you see this sort of silver area.
Yeah.
That's where it continuously weeps. And the most important area is closer to the wing. That's where you would stall first. As you get further out, it doesn't weep as much. And in fact, when we were coming here, we got huge sort of ice collections on the very edge of the wings, but that's usually, it doesn't affect flight. So a lot of you guys on the channel are gearheads like me. We talk about engines and cars and things. And I thought you guys would like to look at an airplane because it also has an engine, and thankfully not a BMW engine. But Jason is a neurosurgeon, a brain doctor. Yep.
So that's what he does. It's amazing that he knows so much about that and also about airplanes. It's kind of two different things, but he's pretty knowledgeable about both of them. So
just enough to keep me safe here.
Yeah, keep you in the air and keep you going. Are these like communications antennas or?
Nope. This just kind of shows airflow, I think, if it's depending on the way it goes. All the antennas are on the main fuselage of the airplane.
Okay, that's really cool. And those are the,
what
are those marker lights?
Navigation lights. Yep.
Yeah.
All airplanes that are going to fly at night have to have a red light on the left and a green light on the right side of the airplane, so you know which way. If you see a light at night, you know which way the airplane's going.
Orientation of it. Okay. So these are ailerons?
Correct, yeah. That's the ailerons. And so that, as you're flying, it helps you bank to the left or right.
And those are the flaps?
Correct, yeah. So when you're flying, you put the flaps up for maximum efficiency and aerodynamics, but when you go to land, you want to control your speed for a very controlled, coordinated landing, and you put flaps down, depending on the plane, to different extent to get an appropriate landing.
How fast can this thing, like when you're cruising up your airspeed or ground, what is the ground speed typically that you see on this thing?
Yeah, I mean, it depends a lot on the wind. So if you have a tailwind, then your ground speed, like flying here, I was going probably in terms of miles per hour, like 230, 240 miles per hour. If you're going against the wind, you take all that efficiency that you're getting pushed and you're going, into the air, so you'll go down to like 170 miles per hour ground speed.
Amazing. So here we are in the cockpit, and Jason will get it turned on for us so we can. It's almost like a Tesla or something.
Yep.
So it just has one joystick, but either person could control
Oh yeah,
it?
that, I often forget that. Yeah, most airplanes have a two-handed control yoke.
Yeah.
Cirrus is one of those that's a side yoke, which is nice because it gives you more space here. The nice thing about the Cirrus is, you know, comparing to what most people know as small planes like the Cessnas, is it's more like an SUV in the sky. It's way more spacious, and they think of things like side yokes and stuff to give you more room in front of you.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Got all kinds of your information on this screen here.
Correct. This is just sort of the startup screen. Let's say one of the screens fails. This is all your engine and your flight information in one screen. They kind of combine it.
Yeah.
But when you have both screens working, it separates. And on this side, it's called the multi-purpose display, where they'll have all your engine and your map, like, you know, your map and your profile view, where the mountains are compared to where you are and the direction of the wind and everything. Once you're up in the air, that becomes available. And then this becomes your primary flight display that shows your horizon, your airspeed, your altitude, you know, what direction you're going, which direction you want to go, all that kind of stuff. There's a whole separate engine page that you can look at and shows you all the engine parameters.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Does this have an autopilot, or do you have
It does.
It does have an autopilot. Wow.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I mean, it's got a very advanced autopilot. Some autopilots can do certain things, other autopilots can do others. This one can almost land itself. It can get me about 200 feet above the ground, directly in front of the runway before I really have to take over.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
You were mentioning to me earlier about this having a parachute for safety.
Correct. Yeah. So if you look up here,
Yeah.
this red handle, all Cirruses, there's the airplanes and there's also a jet version of the Cirrus. They all come equipped with a parachute where, you know, if there's anything you're uncomfortable about and you're 600 feet above the ground, it's safe to pull this down. It takes about 40 pounds of pressure to pull it and deploy it. And in less than 2 seconds, the parachute is deployed and you can land safely horizontally.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Looks like it'd be pretty comfortable in here.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Almost like a car. It has a center console. That looks like it would be a shifter, but that's not a shifter.
Nope, that's the throttle.
That's a throttle. Okay.
And then to the right of it is the fuel mixture.
All right. I'm definitely not the airplane wizard. I'm the car wizard. Let's go ahead and move to the back of the plane. So this is what, the horizontal stabilizer?
Yep, correct. And there, you know, we talked about that de-icing stuff. There's on this control surface and on this control surface the de-icing too. But yeah, this controls your yaw. So, you know, if you're flying like this and the airplane's, you know, flying like that and you want to go straight, you put on the rudder pedals and that controls the vertical stabilizer.
Awesome. How high do you fly? What's your altitude typically for cruising?
So this is equipped to go to 25,000 feet.
Oh wow.
Above 12,500 feet, the pilot is supposed to wear oxygen if you're there for more than 30 minutes, and above 14,500 feet, everyone has to wear oxygen no matter what. And so this is equipped with oxygen. When we fly, we generally try to avoid that because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, when we flew here, we were at 11,000 feet to go around the mountains.
11,000 feet.
Yeah.
That's still pretty high up.
Yeah.
So I guess this is your luggage compartment.
Mm-hmm.
You got everything stored in there, getting ready to take off here
Yep.
pretty soon.
Baggage compartment. There's also the oxygen canister. You can't really see it, but it's sort of right back there. That's where they have to refill the oxygen when we run out of it.
Okay.
And the parachute is all sort of right back here. So when they have to unpack it, repack it, every 10 years you're required to do that. They go in here and they do that.
Okay. That's pretty cool. It looks like it can hold quite a bit, actually.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Wow.
I have this, you know, it's very important to always know the weight and balance of your airplane, the center of gravity and how much weight before you take off and when you land. And I have this sort of scheduled to have about 125 pounds of stuff in there, but, you know, this plane can carry 3,600 and the empty weight is 2,500. So, you know, however I want to distribute 1,100 pounds is what it can carry.
So you just have to make sure it's balanced so it doesn't
Correct.
fly strange or do weird things.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Is that your communications antenna or the white?
Yeah, so we have 2 radios in here, actually 4 radios, 2 navigation radios, 2 communication radios. They run on different frequencies. The communication ones are the ones you hear, you know, like air traffic controllers talking to you on and stuff like that. The navigation radios see different navigation antennas on the ground. Before GPS, it's how airplanes pilots used to navigate. In addition to that, we have 2 GPS antennas now. And an emergency beacon, you know, like if the airplane were to crash, hopefully not, we flip on a beacon and it emits a certain sound, you know.
Okay. How much fuel does it hold if you were to fill? It's in the wings, right? The fuel tanks?
Yep. So there's one and the other one's on the opposite side in the equivalent spot. Let's see, it's 94 gallons. Usable is 92 gallons. And with the weight of my family and our baggage, we put 37 gallons on each side, so 74 total.
74 total?
Yeah, because a gallon of fuel is essentially 6 pounds, and you have to factor that into how much you're going to carry.
What does avgas typically run per gallon?
Oh, it's really variable, actually. Coming here in Billings, Montana, I got it for like $3.30 a gallon, which is good.
Yeah.
Typically, it's more between 4 to 5. Sometimes it's above 5, you know.
So if you have it at, what did you say, 74 gallons? How far can you go typically on that?
About 4.5 hours, depending on, you know, how hard I push the airplane. But with my family, we try not to go more than like 2.5 to 3 hours for bathroom breaks.
Restroom breaks,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I know how that is, having little kids and everything.
Yep.
So what does this little hatch do? What's going on there?
Yeah, this is something every time I fly I access so I can check the oil level. This airplane likes to fly at 6 and I'm at just below 6. So before I take off, I'll put in another quart of oil.
Okay. You can see some of the turbocharger piping and intercooler and stuff going on in there. Is that central thing there, is that like fuel injection there? Or?
Yeah, so a lot of airplanes that are high wing, like you see the Cessnas and stuff like that, that's gravity fed, but this is fuel pump fed.
Fuel pump fed.
Prior to the engine being on, there's a fuel pump and there's also a backup boost pump if I need it. But once the alternator and engine components are going, it's engine fed. The suction is from the power of the engine. But you can also back that up in case the engine fails in flight with the electronic boost.
Normally we would take this cowl off so we could take a look at the engine, but they're wanting to get into the air and start on their trip home, so we don't want to make that last any longer for them than we need to. But if it's time for an oil change on this, is that something part of an annual service, or is it?
You need to have an oil change every, I think it's amount of time you fly. It's
hours, or maybe?
Yeah. And I'm not the one who does the maintenance on the plane. One of my partners is the guy who does that. So I'm thinking it's like 15 to 20 hours, but I'm not 100%. But you're right, there is also annual maintenance in which it kind of gets stripped down and put back together piece by piece, and it's very specific. In order to fly, in order to be eligible to fly, you have to have proof that you've done your annual maintenance in a very controlled manner.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want anything failing on you while you're up in the air. It's definitely need to have everything checked out.
Yep.
So while you're cruising, I see that it looks like they spray water here. Is that what that is?
That is also anti-ice.
Anti-ice.
So, like even coming here, we did get a fair amount of ice collection on our windshield, and you could, it comes off the propeller where I showed you on these silver areas and sprays up on the windshield. But if your windshield is still getting more ice than that can overcome, you can push a different button and it sprays out of those nozzles.
I was going to say, there's no wiper. You couldn't use a wiper
No.
going 200 miles an hour.
No.
So.
And even on the ground, it's sort of frustrating sometimes, when you're driving and you get water collection when it's raining, you turn on your wiper. Even on the runway when we're taxiing, sometimes it'd be nice to have that, but they just don't exist on airplanes.
What would be kind of the weather conditions that you would probably just not want to fly? If it's super windy or lightning, or?
Both of those. Even coming here, when we were taking off, we couldn't see across the runway. Like when we were turning onto the runway, we couldn't see the taxiway on the other side of the runway. It was so foggy. I would have never landed in those conditions. But to take off, it's safer to take off in those conditions because, if you're instrument rated, meaning you know how to fly by instruments, you just sort of go by that and you're fine. But if you're trying to land in those conditions where you can't see the ground, say below 200 feet above the ground, it's not safe to land. I mean, some commercial airlines and airplanes are equipped to do that. But me, especially with my family, I wouldn't feel safe or comfortable doing that, and then we'd just divert to an alternate airport.
It'd be kind of risky. Is this thing pretty loud when it's up and running, or?
Yes, when you're flying, my wife and I both have noise canceling headphones.
Yeah.
I get it for my kids, but they seem not to care as much.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, without the noise canceling headsets, it's too much for me.
So like if your kids are riding in the back and they ask, "Are we there yet?" You can just say, "Look out the window," right?
I'll say, "What?" What?
What? Can't hear you. So look out the window and see if we're there yet.
Yeah, exactly. And my son really enjoys doing that, actually.
Yeah, I do that when I'm on a commercial flight. I'm always looking out the window.
Yeah.
I don't really care what's going on everywhere else. It's pretty cool.
Yep.
So how long is your flight time? Is what you said 9 hours, 8 or 9 hours to get back home?
Yeah, it was here, and I was including like stops in Billings and Cheyenne. Flying back, I've looked at the weather. We're gonna have a pretty good headwind the whole way, so I think it's gonna be 9 hours of flying, not including stops. So probably more like 10 and a half.
10 and a half hours.
Like that.
It sure beats driving. It would be over 25 hours.
Oh
probably.
yeah, absolutely. And you can kind of fly straight as opposed to when you drive, you have to follow the circuitous routes of the road.
Right. Awesome. So I know we would enjoy looking at this plane, but I let you borrow my car.
Yeah.
It's Cube. We call it Cubie. A lot of the viewers are not too happy about QB. They think he looks really weird. Did you guys enjoy QB?
Yeah, QB was great. It was kind of like driving in a box, and talking about wind condition, we definitely felt the wind. But I was impressed when you told me the gas mileage. Holy cow.
Yeah, on the highway it gets about 30.
Yeah, that blows my mind. But yeah, it's a great car. We really appreciated it.
I use it kind of like a truck and also as a car and commuting and everything else. It does everything that I want it to and gets good gas
And
mileage.
super spacious, right?
Yeah, it's got lots of headroom and everything.
Yeah, you're a pretty tall dude, so like I can imagine getting into the typical car, especially the car that you work on in the shop. That must be tough for you, and this is nice.
Yep. So I won't keep you guys too much longer. I know you want to get in the air and get home, but thanks for letting us check out your really cool plane. And you've got surgeries waiting on you when you get back, don't you?
Yeah, do. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to say what kind of tools we use to work on these because we don't work on airplanes, but if you're curious what kind of tools I use in my shop, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. And if you haven't hit the subscribe button already, I really recommend you do that now because my other shop, not this place, has lots of cool projects to come. Thanks for watching.